The new DEA legislation is in effect. Every agency is wondering, will I pass an audit? So we cover three things. First is, what does a ruling actually mean? Where does paper logs fall short? And what does audit-ready actually mean? Why this DEA ruling is changing things now? So a lot of us feel like we've been doing a good job tracking narcotics, doing our job as paramedics, working on ambulance fire engines, whatever it is. So this new ruling is basically saying, you are now responsible for your own DEA registration. So if you were working underneath a hospital, pharmacy, whatever it might be that had the DEA license that you were working under to practice medicine as a first responder, that's now out the window. This legislation actually is good. It gives you more independence. You're able to get your own registration license, deal with suppliers and so on without having to go to a pharmacy or a hospital necessarily. But it also means things are being tightened up. So those 11 requirements in the DEA regulations, you now have to be compliant with, which you did before, but now it's putting all that responsibility and accountability on you. And so it's not the policy that's going to keep you straight and narrow, it's a system. So with the new DEA legislation, they highlighted the 11 requirements that are now necessary for compliance. Way too much detail for me to go into here, but there's a lot of solutions out there that very few of them actually meet those 11 requirements. So make sure you read in detail the new legislation. It can be kind of tedious, but it's critical you know those 11 components. Once you see what those are, make sure your current system meets that requirement because it's critical should you ever have an audit. Where paper falls short in the real world, it's a workflow issue, not a policy issue. We are all very well aware of policies. We have binders full of them, but I can tell you that the paper logs have inherent human factor issues that go through the workflow. I can tell you my first day as a battalion chief, I got a call for missing narcotics on one of the fire engines. Documentation was in order, but the drug's been missing for a week. Turns out they were sitting in a spare fire engine in the shop. So the guy's just been pencil whipping the daily checks. So the workflow was where they fell short. They didn't actually go and check the drugs. So paper logs are only as good as a person using them. Versus electronic, you might have something that requires scanning or so on. So with paper logs, you have people that might not fill them out on time. Of course, they're gonna document that they checked it 15 minutes after they got on duty, but there's always gonna be inherent human factor issues. They also have the physical aspect that they get lost. Someone's trying to reconcile all of them for an audit and they can't find them. I'm sure everyone has experience with that one. So paper logs, they've got a lot of different risks involved. That's why it's always better to have a better accountability system. What audit-ready actually means. So when the DEA or a medical director or EMS agency shows up to audit your inventory of narcotics, you want to have a few components ready to go. First off, is your entire inventory documented and currently accounted for? Secondly, do you have documentation ready to go? So as soon as they show up, is it right there for them? Third, is there a reconciliation of every action that occurred with each one of those drugs? What is administered, wasted, transferred, whatever it is, are those 11 requirements in the DEA regulations met? And then fourth and finally, if there was ever anything wrong, say a missing drug, a diversion, just a gap in inventory checks, what did you do when that occurred? Not after the fact, down the road, but right away, when it occurred, did you take some sort of documented action? That's very important because they're going to treat that differently than someone that just lets it go. So the more prepared you are, the better chances you're going to have in passing, and they're going to have confidence in you in managing controlled substances. What auditors actually look for. I recently heard about the R.A.T test. So what R.A.T test is reconciliation, accountability, and traceability. So reconciliation, do you have a perfect record of everything? Accountability, do you have one person in charge that can compile everything you have for the audit itself? And then traceability, is the record from cradle to grave, from the time you got those drugs until the time they were used or wasted. So with all that in mind, it's not about the forms, it's about being able to reconcile all that information should you ever be audited. How agencies are adapting to the new legislation. There's basically kind of three different categories. There's agencies that were working under maybe a hospital's DEA registration, and now they're having to take on all the responsibility themselves. So they're kind of scrambling right now, coming up with not just inventory ordering, but also how are they going to manage that? How are they going to meet those DEA compliance? We're seeing a lot of that at LogRx. And so I think that having those folks is kind of good because they get to start from scratch and build their system out. The second group we're seeing are those that maybe had their DEA registration license, but they were on paper. And so they're looking at now the regulations saying, how do we need to tighten things up? And so some of them are transitioning to electronic just to be a little more efficient, or maybe a lot more efficient. And then you have the folks that were already high and tight, top of the line, digital tracking for narcotics, but they're still reviewing, and as they should, the DEA regulations to make sure that that digital tracking they're using still meets those 11 requirements, because not all of them do. So everyone's probably going to fall under one of those three, whichever you are. digital, high and tight is going to be your best choice. LogRx is just a software idea. I built it from decades of experience in EMS. I worked in very busy systems in the San Francisco Bay Area, and rough seas make good sailors. So I took all that experience. I saw ways that things fell short. I saw things where they worked really well. So I took that experience and I saw a void in the EMS system of good accountability with narcotics. I thought, you know what, I can fix that. And so I worked with an amazing group of folks and we built LogRx because I knew we could help improve this system, help paramedics do their job better, and help keep the public and the first responders safer. We did it for three main reasons. We wanted to, first off, make the job easier for folks out in the field. Secondly, we wanted to make a system that was gonna have the highest level of accountability in case there ever was an audit or that avoid a diversion or a missing dark narcotic that could hurt somebody. And thirdly, we wanted to make administrators' jobs easier. Less staff time and less worry. So if there ever was an audit, they know that they have LogRx right there and that they can pass it with flying colors. Yes, you can still use paper. It's gonna take a lot more staff time. You're gonna have a lot more human error factor involved. And you're also gonna have trouble collecting all that if there is an audit. So when the DEA shows up for a surprise audit and you have to pull it all out, there's a good chance you're gonna have some gaps. And that's why electronic, something that tracks in real time, takes out the margin of error, human factor, you're gonna be in a lot better shape and you're gonna sleep better at night. With the new DEA legislation, the big question is, am I compliant? So this channel is where we break those questions down in real world type situations for EMS professionals still out in the field. So any questions, please post them in the comments and we'll see you out there.